In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I took an existing album by the band 1st of October and made it into something the Beatles sing on. From original conception to fancy AI-powered software, even down to mixing choices and challenges, I will take you on an interesting journey of everything you could possibly need to know. Make sure to stick around to the end for the results. They are quite surprising. Let's get into it. Lots of you are probably wondering what the 1st of October is, so let me explain. 1st of October is a one-day-a-year band created by music YouTubers Rob Scallon and AndrewHuang, where each year on the 1st of October they have 12 hours to write and record an entire album from scratch. Now, aside from that early Beatles-style recording technique of making an album under a day, you might be confused as to why I chose this band specifically. That is because in 2023 they did something slightly different, and they flew to London to record at Abbey Studios, the studio that many great bands used, such as Pink Floyd, Radiohead, Oasis, and most relevant and iconically, the Beatles. The studio was even originally called EMI Recording Studios, but later renamed after their album Abbey Road. The guys from the 1st of October also had access to loads of equipment that the Beatles used, such as the piano used on the White Album A Magical Mystery Tour, a Hammond organ that the Beatles used on the White Album, the bass drum that Ringo frequently used, and a classic Mellotron synthesizer, just like the one that can be heard in the intro of Strawberry Fields Forever. They even made sure to use a Hofner bass just like Paul McCartney would have in the early era of the Beatles. This had the effect of influencing the songs in a more 60s/70s Beatlesque direction. And that's when it hit me. After countless listens, I had the idea of, what if the Beatles' voices were on this album? It seemed like an interesting concept, and the whole 60s Beatlesque vibe was already there. Could this possibly be the perfect new album to put the Beatles' voices on? So, I instantly got to work figuring out how I could do this. Luckily, I'd been experimenting with using AI to put other singers' voices into existing songs for a few months. This was a big stepping stone, as I already knew what software I'd need to make it possible. For the AI voices, I'd be using a software called RVC that allows you to take an input vocal from an existing song and use a trained AI model of someone's voice to make it sound like someone else is singing the song. For example, let's take the song Imagine by John Lennon. Then if we download it, paste the file location into the software, and select, say, Paul McCartney, it will spit out a version of Paul McCartney singing the song using all the data provided. There's just one small problem, however. If we listen to the file,
imagine there's no heaven. It's easy and you don't try.
Yep, that's right. He's not just singing the vocals, he's singing the entire song. Clearly we need to fix this issue. That brings me to our next bit of AI software, RipX. RipX is a software that allows you to input a single file, get each individual element of a song back, such as vocals, drums, guitar, and bass. These are also known as the stems of a song. RipX uses AI to determine what is what in the song and split it accordingly. It's very similar to the Mount audio technology Peter Jackson used to separate John Lennon's voice from the Now and Then demo, but not quite as pristine. But this allows us to have the song's vocals only.
Imagine all the people.
So if we go back to our Paul McCartney model, switch out the input file to the separated vocals, and try to make him sing it now, we'll find that he's only singing the vocals.
Above us only sky. Imagine all the people.
Now that I was certain of what software I would use, I got to work and downloaded all the songs and split them into stems using RipX. Another thing I did for some songs was use said AI software to find each part of a harmony in a vocal and separate it into each individual vocal, so that later on I could have a different Beatle singing each part of it. Sadly, this didn't work flawlessly, and not for every song, but it was better than nothing.
Jesus walks, Eric Rand, Shelby drove. Jesus walks, Eric Rand, Shelby drove. Jesus walks, Eric Rand, Shelby drove. Jesus walks, Eric Rand, Shelby drove.
After getting the stems, I then used RVC to convert the voices.
Every day I gotta get myself to work. Gotta choose what to use for transportation.
This is also where I had to decide who was singing lead on each song, and I knew I wanted each Beatle to sing at least one track, like a real Beatles album. Let's get on to how I put all of this together. To mix the tracks, I used FL Studio. I started by putting all the stems into an empty project and then adding the AI vocals on top, making sure to match the volume and placement of the original.
Some people got a private jet that they could fly. Meanwhile, I gotta try the train station.
I later went back and remixed the songs after getting access to the original stem files of the album via Andrew's Patreon. This ensured a better quality. Using the Patreon stems, I also went back to some of the vocals and reconverted them to the AI voices for better results. On some songs, I used elements from existing Beatles songs. For example, on the song Dorian, I used vocal parts from Helter Skelter and placed them in a way so it lines up and enhances the song, just to give it a better sense of realism. On this specific song, it also helps hide the fact that lots of AI voices don't handle raspy and powerful vocals the best, unless you specifically use a trained raspy model like I did. And even then, I think it was a good call to mix in some of those real Paul McCartney vocals, since, well, it's the real thing, it's always going to sound better. Another instance I had of using real vocal elements is in the song Pretty Raw. I decided to add the harmony vocals from Here, There and Everywhere, since the song is otherwise instrumental and would remain unchanged. So with a bit of playing around with the speed and pitch of the original song and the new backing vocals, I got an interesting result. Next, I wanted to dive into what effects I used. Again, this is to add to the realism of the songs. Pretty much every song has at least a hint of reverb added to the vocals, just to make it feel like it was actually recorded in a real room and not just computer generated.
It's good to be back. Jet lag fighting under that Union Jack.
Some songs have more reverb to either match the original vocals or to match what I think the Beatles might have done. The reverb plugin I used is Valhalla Vintage Reverb, since this allows me to emulate the type of reverb that the Beatles would have used back in the day. On some songs, I also used a technique called double tracking. Most notably, I used it on the song Usually. I decided that I had to put John on vocals, since he was the one that used double tracking the most out of all the Beatles. To do this, however, you need 2 vocal takes, and I only had 1, so I had to re-sing the vocal parts twice so it would be possible to get that double tracked effect. Side note, I can't really sing, so if you're wondering why those sound not great, that's why, so yeah. Anyway, this again helps sell the illusion, since it was used loads by the Beatles, with them being major pioneers of the technique.
But recently, I'm just feeling all.
I also used some delay in places, again, to match the original vocals like in the song Dorian.
To be without you.
Or in the case of John singing, to match his classic slapback delay that he can be heard using a lot in his solo career. I used it on a few songs, here are my favourite examples.
Oh, it could be you were across the universe, trying to escape the crowd. No one has shown me how. I'm gonna live out loud.
The final effect that I used was on the song Make It Through the Night, and it was a simple phaser. This gives the effect of strange, almost doubled vocals.
I keep my silver in my sight, and I chew on it every single night. Tastes fine.
My idea to use it on this song came from Blue Jay Way and the Anthology 3 version of Not Guilty, especially since I chose George to sing on this song.
Please don't be long.
I'm really sorry that you're underfed, but like we heard me said, not guilty.
Another thing I almost did was mix the songs like an early Beatles album, with vocals and drums all the way to the right, and guitar, bass and backing vocals to the left. But I ultimately decided against it, since in, well, my opinion, I don't think it sounds the greatest, and there is a reason music isn't mixed like that anymore, because it kinda sucks.
Well, she was just 17, you know what I mean.
So after all that work, how did the project turn out? Pretty decently, I think. A lot of the songs work very well with the Beatles' voices, especially Abbey Road, Dorian, and Magic.
Another day by your side, showing you all the world's magic.
The more basic tracks like It's Good to Be Back,
Jet lag fighting under that Union Jack.
Usually,
Recently, I'm just feeling all.
Make It Through the Night,
I keep my silver in my side.
and Live Out Loud.
Trying to escape the crowd. No one show me how.
Also work quite well. I just don't think they sound as realistically Beatly as the others. As for the other songs, such as Across the Road
Across the pond, Oktoberfest.
and Sunlight Sunlight,
The only important time. Right in the sunshine.
these are the songs where I couldn't get the AI voice to sound any good due to the harmonies being so tight. I would love to come back to these songs when technology gets better and can separate individual harmonies. Or if Rob and Andrew watch this video, I'd be very grateful if I could get the individual parts sent to me. That'd be very helpful and just amazing. So, my AI version of the album has been out for a little while now on my second channel. Subscribe to that for some extra, more experimental videos. And the community seems to really enjoy the idea. Here are some of my favourite comments. Even AndrewHuang left a comment, so that really made the project worth it in my opinion. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what else in this style you might like to see in the future. Like if you enjoyed, and dislike if you didn't. Also, be sure to subscribe because 98% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed. Click here to listen to my full AI version of the album, and click here to watch Rob's video where they make the album. Thanks for watching. Bye. 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 Bye.